And I'm going to tell you through a story of a hero's journey. It's the story of Dr. Strange. Has anybody seen the Dr. Strange movie? I know that. Okay. Well, Doctor Strange is actually my favorite Marvel movie right now. You probably know I love the superhero thing. I love the superhero movies. I like Wonder Woman. I like Xena. I like it all. There's something about it that captures my imagination. One of the things I really like is the metaphysics of some of these movies. And I was, as we were driving across Colorado, I downloaded a couple movies on my Kindle, and so I watched Doctor Strange for maybe, I don't know, the 10th time. I just like it. And I thought, why? Why do I like this movie? Why does it have a meaning to me? And so let me start with a little bit about what I'm talking about, and then I'll tell you, to the best of my ability, without making it long and boring, the plot of the movie. Now, maybe all creation must start from love. All creation must start from compassion. But certainly what we create together here, those of us in this room, especially when we create things together, we want to create from a consciousness of adding to the greater good. That's different than just creating something. What we create here, we want to add to the greater good. Now, here's the deal with Doctor Strange, the movie, besides having one of my favorite actors in it, Benedict Cumberbatch. It's a pretty good plot. Here's a guy who's a surgeon, and he's got a big ego. You can tell that. The whole setup is he's operating, and he is not a humble surgeon. He is totally... He's got the jazzy music, and while he's operating, he's saying, "Okay, put on a song, and I'll challenge me." And he knows the song, and he knows the year, and all that stuff. And then in the middle of that, he gets interrupted to go save somebody else's life. So he is pretty darn pleased with himself. He gets in an accident, and his hands get crushed in a car. His hands get crushed. And so then he spends like a year or whatever trying to get his hands back. And he's so mad, he's so angry, he is just bitter. And he tries everything he can to get his hands back. And then a physical therapist he says, "Whoever came back from this?" And the physical therapist says, "I knew a guy." So he hunts down the guy, and the guy says, who had an operation, or he had an accident that should have left his spine completely severed so that he couldn't walk, and the guy learned to walk again. And so Stephen Strange says, "How'd you do it?" And he goes, "I went to Tibet, or I went to Asia, I went to Hermitage." And so Stephen Strange wanders through the Himalayas and is asking everybody, "Where's Hermitage? Where's Hermitage?" And then he gets beat up, and then there's a really cool guy who does magic and, all that, and saves him and brings him into Hermitage. And he meets the Ancient One, and he wants to learn. And he asks to learn, and she's like, no, you're too egotistical, and throws him out. But then he waits at the door, and he waits at the door, and he waits at the door. And she lets him in. She's willing to teach him. So she teaches him this stuff. And he learns, and of course, it's a superhero movie, so there's magic and there's martial arts. And he learns these things, and there's ancient artifacts, and it's fun in that way. But he studies, okay? He studies and studies because he wants this. He wants to heal his hands, and then as it ends up, he realizes that he can choose, at a certain point, he can choose to heal his hands and go back to his old life. Basically, he's learned enough metaphysics to be able to use energy and restore his hands. So he could be a surgeon and just do his old life, or he could be something greater. And there's a scene that I just love. The Ancient One is also called the Sorcerer Supreme. And either before or right after, she's actually going to die. And they're both out of their bodies. And he's like, what's happening? And she says, this is the point where she's facing him with, you have so much to give. You could go back and live this old life, or you could choose something greater. You haven't even learned the most important lesson, she says. And he's like, man, I can fly, and I can bend light, and I can go in and out of dimensions, and what's the most important lesson? She goes, it's not about you. It's not about you. So eventually, he does pick the high road. He decides to work for the greater good. If you really want to know the rest of it, you can come over to my house and we can watch it again. But listen to this. It's not about you. But it is about us. It's about all of us. How would compassion create? Ask yourself that question. How would you, as your most compassionate self, create? What would you create? A world that is not about you, but about us. So, here is the point that has such meaning for me. A lot of us, when we come to Unity, we have been on many spiritual paths, right? Like, we have gone through stuff. We have examined our consciousness. We have done a lot of stuff. In order to get here, you are a seeker of spiritual truth, right? You're a seeker. And so much of it is, it's like, well, let me make myself better. Let me be a little bit better. Hey, I do it myself. It's like, gosh, let me be less of a whiner. Could I just whine a little bit less today? Help me. Could I be a little more kind? Could I meditate more? Whatever, some of it's like adding to our resume, just like a regular resume, only it's our spiritual resume. It's our road to enlightenment. And it reminds me of, so here's this doctor who's already studied, you got to go to school to be a surgeon. You got to do a lot of stuff. Then he's on this other path. And it looks like he's learning to control even more parts of the universe in manifesting. But is that really what it's about? Him turning into a master. Is it about us turning into a master? Oddly enough, it's not. What it's about is recognizing that we're already an aspect of divinity, just like what it says on the wall. Really getting it. And not only are we an aspect of divinity, but every single person on the planet is too. That changes everything. It changes everything. And why is it so hard for us to get? It's like, because we have history. Some people would even say lifetime. So we have a long history in this lifetime alone, right, of being told what we are not. And the culture supports that. How not good enough are you? How not pretty enough are you? How not young enough are you? How not smart enough are you? How not rich enough are you? How not kind enough are you? How much are you not God? And so each of us have really good reason. We have a history for believing that. And yet, if we really got it, that we are the Christ, which is what Jesus of Nazareth came to teach, it does seem to be what the Buddha came to teach, and Muhammad, and many, many other spiritual teachers in the religions of the world. Even though some of it gets distorted, right? The message has definitely gotten distorted. especially when you get along the lines of punishment and if you're not good enough. It's like that is such in us that we really can react to that punishment. So how do you get that? How do you get that? How do you really get it? Well, think of how you create. Think of how could you create compassionately for yourself. Think of what you could do. Think about, I don't know how you spent Thanksgiving. Did you create or show up to a Thanksgiving where you were the honored guest, where you were the Christ as a human, where you treated yourself with love and compassion and kindness and gravy? Did you do that? Did you allow yourself to be just how you were, hanging over your pants a little bit? That's what I do. Wearing the stretchy pants on Thanksgiving Day. Because you don't really want your pants to talk to you while you're eating Thanksgiving dinner. Did you treat yourself with kindness in the morning? Did you give yourself compassion throughout the day? Even when you were annoyed at someone and said something to your sister or your mother or your brother, or you thought a bad thought or whatever, were you still able to have compassion and love yourself? I mean, for me, you think, well, I can always I was around some grandkids. I can always love them. Well, let me tell you, they have two sides to them. They're completely adorable in one moment, and then a little bit shrieky, and then they're excited, so they like to jump on you. So it's like it's an interesting thing to notice that. So can I know that I'm an aspect of divinity, and that they're an aspect of divinity when they are bugging the heck out of me? I know that everybody here actually has an inner knowing. None of us actually need to take another class. None of us actually need to do another workshop unless it's fun and sweet and we recognize the divinity in ourselves as we do it. But right now, just in this exact moment, no matter who we are or what we are actually just as much God as we're going to be. We might know it a little bit deeper, though. We might know it about deeper. Paul Selig writes, everything that has been created can be recreated. Everything that has been created can be recreated in its true nature. So, your true nature. Your true nature is you're a divine being in this form, in this human form. And you are spirit, knowing yourself in form. And when I'm talking about compassionate creation, I'm talking about knowing yourself as the Christ and knowing every other person as the Christ. And then I think about, well, what does that look like? And I actually don't have a lot more to say on that. Don't think I'm wrapping up this early, but as far as that topic is, the only person who knows how you are going to create with compassion is you. I have some things that have worked for me, and I read some books, and other spiritual teachers have stuff to say. It's interesting to me that every time I follow a spiritual teacher or a spiritual leader or a spiritual book, if I go into the Bible, if I go into any other literature, if I follow any teacher that rings true to me, it comes down to this level of truth, which it's almost like, how many times do I have to keep looking and keep finding it? The truth that I'm already divinity. Like, really? Seriously? I already am. And that the secret of everything, the secret of all of it is already in me, which means and already in you. And just to get that. Like, how can that be? So if everybody here in the room could start, I want to suggest a little exercise. You don't have to look at everybody. You can give some side eye if you want, but see if you can see somebody else in the room besides me. Let's kind of look over. Notice that there's more people in here than just you and me. Notice who they are. Just think of them. And visualize that person walking as the Christ, walking as the Buddha, walking as a spark of divinity of all that is. Just the way they look now. If you would like to see glowing light, go ahead and see glowing light. It's good. If you'd like to see a halo, go ahead and see a halo. Wings are good. But just how they are in this exact body. This exact body. And if they are, then I am too. So the hardest part for me in this, and maybe you share this, is letting go of my list of things to improve myself. If I throw out that list, don't everybody panic. I was actually thinking, don't panic, honey. If I throw out that list, things to improve myself, and instead, I just get in touch with that. That's all I need. You don't even have to, there's nothing else you need to do. Then get that. There's nothing else to teach. But you might need to remind yourself. So, because we are who we are, and our personality selves are still, they're feisty, they're strong, they're whatever. We have our stories, we have our accomplishments. But just remind our little self that that's okay, that the personality self who makes the list, who improves ourselves step by step, just let that off the hook and know this, that if you decide to go ahead and allow yourself to be that absolute divinity, that you will have help. There is immense help from all that is and all the aspects of divinity that are not you. It's like the field of possibility, or grace, or God. So you can let go of the list, you can get go of improving that little self, and you can actually just go straight to reminding yourself that just how you are absolutely divine. And that it's in there, and you have the inner knowing, and you will have help. That's the last thing I wanted to say. So you will have help. If you have help, it's already there. All you have to do is say, I need help. I'm not going to take my small personality self, no matter how many exercises it does, no matter how many workshops it goes to, is not going to become divinity. But if I just stand here or sit here and connect to the inner knowing and ask for the support of the universe, I will get there. That's all I have to say. You'll get there. We'll get there. Let's take an offering for unity. invite you to take your tithe and your love offering in your hand.